something that we don't.
They
But
have to.
I think Baldy's going to be fine. I think Porcello is going to be fine. And I think Velasquez, even if he has a no-hitter through 4, I haven't seen him make it past the 4th inning, and I don't know how long, usually because of pitch count. So Core's usually pretty strict with him when it comes to that.
Well, I just always chalk down the Velasquez starts as kind of like bullpen days anyway.
Yeah, 100%, because you're going to see him. You might see Pomeranz, you might see Thornburg, Frazier. You don't know who you're going to see.
He could be a viable starter, though. The only thing is he's just not used to being stretched out. But if they had him in there regularly, I feel like he would give you Brian Johnson type numbers and be a serviceable number 5 guy at the absolute worst.
100%. He's your like emergency 5th, 4th, and 5th starter, right? He's like that third goalie in the playoffs that sits in the clubhouse fully ready to go in the locker room in case both goalies get hurt in the middle of the game, even though it never happens and you never even probably see that person or even hear of it. That's what Velasquez is to this team. You have the 1 through 5 when healthy, being Sale, Price, Porcello, Erod, and Stephen Wright. And then if someone goes out, you put in Brian Johnson. And then when someone else goes out, if you don't make a trade, you put in Velasquez.
Possibly. Another thing with Erod that I forgot to mention is what's the corresponding move if he does come up before September 1st? And I think he might. Does Workman just get optioned again? Is that where Pomeranz gets DFA'd? Because I don't know that that's a great move right now either. But
I don't even know that DFAing Pomeranz is an option. I think it's Workman, unfortunately.
Just optioning him, and then he can just come right back on September 1st. But
yeah, it makes more sense for that, and exactly because if you think about the schedule wise, right, for the Sox right now, we're going in against 3 against Tampa, and he's obviously not playing in this series at all, right?
Right.
So that takes you to August 28th because we have a day off, which is funny. We have a day off to go play from Tampa to Miami, but we come home, but still, you know what I mean. So we have a day off there. We have Johnson and Price already there, so there is a blank spot on August 30th against the White Sox. He might come back for that. That means you'd be optioning Workman for 2 days. So it makes the most sense for that because you can call him right back up 2 days later.
I guess just the intrigue about it was if somebody might get DFA'd because, it just seems like everybody in our bullpen is out of options right now, except for Workman, maybe one other. But we're just too close to September 1st, so yeah.
Yeah, if this was, I don't know, 2 months ago, and Pomeranz was where he was, you could think about him getting DFA'd then because it would make sense because you still have half the year to go and you're at options and we'd rather keep Workman because he's been good in situations and, Pomeranz doesn't have a spot in the rotation anymore, but with it being so close to September call-ups and injuries bound to happen / guys getting hot / all hands on deck to try and win 115 games, you want to, keep everybody you can.
Right, absolutely. Anything MLB wide before we take off? Astros, A's is.
I hate the Astros so much.
Pretty intense.
I just wish they would go away.
They're not gonna.
I guess league wise. Yep, that's a good word. Rip to the Dodgers.
Yep.
They are 3-7 in their last 10. They get Kenley Jansen back, who immediately blows 1, if not 2 saves right away. They are only 6 games above 500, 4.5 back in the West, with some really good teams in front of them being Arizona and the Rockies, who have been crazy. And in the wild card, they're 3.5 back, but they would have to jump the Phillies and the Brewers and the Rockies just to get into the second wild card spot, with St. Louis being the first wild card spot and or the Cubs.
Farm system also absolutely drained.
Yeah, Terry, you've been tweeting about it a lot recently, and I still like the Machado trade. It makes so much sense, and you can re-sign him, but your take on the fact that they blew up their farm to not make the playoffs is right on point. So if you want to talk about that for a minute before we head off, just because you've been kind of crushing that recently on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, I mean, with the Machado trade individually, I have no problem with it. It made sense at the time. It's just the castle is crumbling all around him, and it's just not looking good, and they gave up prospects, and it's just...
Even going back to last year, I mean, you gave up Willie Calhoun, who's going to wind up being a star in the Texas organization here pretty soon, for Yu Darvish.
Right. Yeah, look at the last 3 years that they've been hunting this playoff between free agent signings and trades.
Well, and then they get there last year, right? And all of a sudden, it's that drug of wanting to get back and do it. But honestly, how many times does it happen? It never happens the second year.
Right.
No, not often. It really doesn't. It's usually one of those things where
the Royals is the only one.
Yeah, the Royals are the only one, and they ended up getting there and winning it, which was great. But for LA, I mean, they've hit a lot of hard bad luck. I mean, we talk about injured teams, the Red Sox being a big and contending teams, right? No one cares if San Diego had 8 starters out this year; they weren't going to contend anyway. Or Minnesota, or Detroit, or Texas. No one cares about that. But teams that were contending that have hit injury luck in the American League, it was the Red Sox for the entire year up until recently in Houston, but they're getting everybody back now anyway. The Yankees have missed a couple guys, but I think they're a better team without Sanchez this year anyway, so Judge is the only one that hurts there. LA has been riddled with injuries, including the left side of the infield, gone for pretty much the entire year. Seager was gone the entire year. Justin Turner out for half, a little more than half. Every single one of their pitchers in the starting rotation was on the DL at one point this year. Their closer was on the DL this year for, a heart condition and sucked at the start of the year. So they've hit awful injury luck, which sucks for them. But you look at a team like the Red Sox, they've overcome it. You look at a team like Houston, they're still in first place, even with how good Oakland's playing. So it sucks, but when you have a farm system and guys you can call up and a good manager, you can do those things. AJ Hinch, Alex Cora. I love Dave Roberts and everything he's done for me in my life. He really turned my life around in a great positive outlook.
Same.
He's just not a good manager. He's a good players manager. He's not a good manager, though.
Well, that's an analytics team, though. I don't think he's really calling the shots for the most part.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's not calling the shots.
It's Aaron Boone syndrome in another big market, basically. The analytics team's calling the shot 100%.
Yep, except Aaron Boone's not even a good players manager.
Yeah, right. He's terrible.
The Dodgers love.
Yeah.
Just Mendoza would be a better manager than Aaron Boone.
That's saying something. Who was that guy? He was a Yankee man. He played catcher for the Yankees a long time ago. Bald head.
Yogi Berra.
Pretty smart baseball mind. I really hate him. Oh, Joe Girardi. I wonder what he's doing.
Yeah, he's just kind of kicking his socks around, waiting for a call.
Yeah, it's almost like they should have never got rid of him.
It's not going to be the Cardinals. And the Yankees wait, because that was a story throughout the last offseason. They waited and waited and waited. It was almost December before they had a manager, and they couldn't get rid of Girardi until the Red Sox had announced or were imminently going to announce Alex Cora, because they couldn't afford to have Girardi come over here. He knows all the secrets, he knows the blueprints for them, and we got Cora, and maybe, that's going to work out just fine, but, just crazy. But Girardi's going to be a manager, Guys like Madden, whether we like him or not, Francona, Girardi, maybe even Lovello at this point, they're all going to be managers for life if they want to be. And it's just a matter of where they end up. And they're
going to wind up like Mattingly. They're always going to have a job.
Yeah, well... Yeah, I don't know. Mattingly kind of got a bad rap. I mean, he almost got fired,
He's such a douche.
A year...
He is.
Yeah, especially the way that Acuna thing went down. But another thing on Machado, though, is this hurting his market now? Is he more like a $200 million player versus a $300 million player? Because, I mean, you can make the case, he didn't help Baltimore win. He's not helping LA win. And granted, there are other underlying factors. But I mean, 5 home runs, 12 RBIs. That's not exactly the JD effect, as I was mentioning earlier. I mean, so I don't have Mike Moustakas' numbers up in front of me, but for $30 million, you could get Moustakas, probably Andrew Miller, and a Mitch Moreland type guy. You know, for what Machado is going to cost you annually alone, I think there's not a whole lot of value there.
But it's baseball, and somebody's going to get desperate. They always do.
Somebody always does get desperate, but I actually view it as the opposite, Terry, which is that he's been on such a bad Baltimore team, and he's on an LA team that is basically watching themselves dig their own grave, and they just don't know it yet that they're out of it. And he's still producing. He's still playing hard. He's still trying. And not once in his tenure in Baltimore did he have a bad year. So he did all he could in Baltimore to help them get to the next level.
Baltimore didn't help him win.
Exactly. And I think this is helping his cause. His worst year in Baltimore, since 2012, his worst year was last year, where he hit 33 home runs, had 95 RBIs, 50 walks on the button, and batted .259. That was his worst year. So to show that that's your basement for $30 million is like a 260, 30 home runs, 100 RBIs as his worst. And his ceiling is something like this year, 304 on 2 teams that aren't going to make the playoffs, 29 home runs now, so he's going to hit, 35, maybe 40? I think it helped.
Yeah, probably more like 35, but I don't know. If it's an 8-year deal, I mean, he's probably only going to be good for 3 or 4 of those years. I don't know. The weirdness of last year, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a bit of an encore this year. And it's going to be a fun off season because, we're going to go through the same thing with Harper as well. But
Harper's value is much lower. What was that, Terry?
Would it surprise you if San Diego kind of got desperate and offered him $30 million?
No, not at all. San Diego's going to try and compete in 1 or 2 years, just like the Phillies and just like Atlanta did. And they will get Bryce Harper or Machado or one of those big names guys. Machado's market value is $26 million, 8 years, $208 million. I think you could easily see an 8-year, $200 million contract, which would put him around like $25 million a year.
Oh, that's
honestly, 26 years old is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, to me, there's a huge difference between $200 million and $300 million. And I think
there's only like 3 guys worth $300 million, and one of them's on the Red Sox.
Yeah. No, that was the point I was making. I could see him getting $200 million for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I think it's worth it, honestly. But like 250, 300, I think only a desperate team like the Nationals would do it.
They might do it with Harper. Yeah, I mean, because don't they have to?
They're not going to get Harper. I don't think they're going to get Harper, so I think they have to get somebody because they refuse to sell off players, and they still have a good pitching staff. They still have Sean Doolittle in the bullpen. So you can get one more bullpen piece. Maybe a guy like Kimbrel, honestly, goes back to that division. Kimbrel, Doolittle, Machado, Turner, Eaton, Strasburg, Soto. I mean, not a bad team.
But it's Washington. That's the thing. Like, they have this we're one player away syndrome that they add the player that they think they need, and what they don't realize is that they should honestly just rebuild. Like, you have guys that are your rebuild would be extremely fast. You have the pieces.
Eventually, the Marlins are going to get good, and they're going to get out of my top 3 worst teams, and I think the Nationals are going to take their place. I really believe that.
They might. They will sooner than later if they keep doing this whole, we're going to contend, and then they finish 500, and they don't sell, and they keep buying over and over and over.
They're eerily similar to the Dallas Mavericks in basketball. It's like, when is mediocrity stop becoming okay? Why do you want to sneak into the playoffs every year knowing that you're not going to win a playoff series? Right. The only difference between the Nationals and the Mavs is the Mavs have a championship. The Nationals haven't even been close. They haven't been to an LCS.
And that's why right there, you just said it perfectly. They look at the teams that have been to the World Series and or won World Series in the last 5 or 6 years. Who's it been? Kansas City, been there and won it. The Mets went there